My boyfriend of 4 years left me abruptly.
I watched that 4-part story, so you don't have to. I don't know if you remember who that is, but that's Sarah. And we covered her story about like a month ago. She was telling us the story of how her husband left her 30 weeks pregnant out of nowhere, right? So fast forward. This is Andrea. She's telling us that her boyfriend of 4 years abruptly left her, and a week later she found out that he was sleeping with, yep, you guessed it, Sarah. Andrea wanted to post her story time because she wanted Sarah's fans to know that she's not exactly who she's portraying to be, and the very thing she's on here getting sympathy for, she was doing as well to another woman. So Andrea named her ex-boyfriend John, so we'll just keep that name. John and Sarah actually used to be coworkers. That's how they met, and they all were working at a restaurant, and Andrea and John started dating right after he started working at that job. And so she would come around, their work friends, when they would go out to, you know, outings and dinner and stuff like that, she would come along as well. So she was very much a part of that friend group. But she said Sarah specifically did a good job of keeping a distance between them two, even though she was rather close to John. So I watched both ladies' take on this, so we're going to go into both of them. So first of all, Andrea said that she found out all of this happened just recently. The breakup happened like 3 months ago. What upsets Andrea the most is that right after he was with her, he left and went and started being with Sarah. Now, Sarah's husband left her back in like November, October of 2024, and she said that she disappeared for about 2 weeks. Her friends were reaching out to Sarah, trying to see what was going on, and one of those people that reached out actually was John, Andrea's boyfriend. He's like, hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. And that's when Sarah told him, like, no, I'm not all right. My husband just left me. Andrea's recounting of her relationship, she said that they were very happy. She was very willing to do anything that, you know, would please him. If she was doing something that he didn't like, she wanted him to tell her. If she wasn't doing something that he would like, she wanted him to tell her. I was even willing to go brunette for this man. She felt like they had a very happy relationship up until she went on this work trip. She goes on a work trip and he tells her, hey, I'm actually gonna go to lunch with some of my friends, like specifically Sarah and then another couple. And she's like, oh, I want to go on that lunch, like see if you can reschedule. And he's like, no, I can't reschedule. He just like made a whole thing out of it. And so she's like, okay, whatever. So she goes on her trip, he goes on the lunch. She thinks that more happened. She says, like, I'm not gonna say exactly what it was, but I feel like more happened during that lunch. And then after she came back from the work trip, he was just way off. While Andrea and John were dating, one thing that he had mentioned was if he had ever dated somebody for about 4 years, that's when he would start thinking about proposing or actually go ahead and propose. So in her mind, she's thinking that they're getting closer to marriage. So their anniversary was actually late October 2024, and then in December of 2024 they went on another trip for his birthday. This is when he like took full advantage. He was being intimate with her multiple times a day. She felt like this was actually his last hurrah, and in his mind he had already made up that he was going to leave her. She comes back from this trip, she's not really like thinking anything of it. They end up going out for a friend's birthday the night before, and the next morning when they wake up, he all of a sudden is like, yeah, I'm ending this relationship, I'm not happy, I want to like move on. He even said something along the lines of like, I know you want marriage and kids, that's not something that I want. I'm actually doing you a favor by ending this relationship so you can go find that. And she's like, well, if you're doing me a favor, don't do this. Like, obviously this is her in like the first few moments of finding out. She's like trying to do everything to save the relationship, but he seems pretty adamant. Mind you, they bought this condo that they live in together. About a week after the breakup happened, Andrea actually ended up getting invited to a brunch, and Sarah was actually there. She had no idea that Sarah and John were involved at this point, and so she's confiding in Sarah and telling her like, this is happening, da 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 da. She was like, actually me and John used to watch your TikToks together and feel so bad for you, like we couldn't believe, you know, what your husband was doing to you. Sarah said something that stuck out in Andrea's head where she was like, oh, don't feel bad for me. And Andrea's like, that's a weird thing to say, but in hindsight though, Andrea's like, oh, it's because you were already sleeping with my ex-boyfriend at that time. Like, he moved out the same day that he told her that he wanted to go separate ways. He already had a room set up at his buddy's place, and right when they came back from the trip, he was out of there. According to Andrea, Sarah and John are still involved with one another and they're still doing their thing. She's just obviously really hurt and upset by this. Sarah did like a little picture response about all of this, and then she actually did a video responding to all of this. And what Sarah said was, for you to compare yourself and your 4-year relationship to my husband leaving me when I'm 30 weeks pregnant is wild. She's like, there's no way you think we're in the same boat. She said, I did not sleep with John while he was with you. I got with him after he left you. Sarah also wanted people to know know that she's not in a relationship with John. In her eyes, she is still single. Also, Sarah was saying like the communication that her and John were having prior to them getting together was all in group chats that have existed for years and have multiple people in them. She also mentioned that the lunch that Andrea is talking about, John actually was never at that lunch. He was invited, but he declined, saying that he had to go to lunch with his girlfriend. So she's like, you keep bringing up this lunch, John was never there. Sarah does confirm that John was one of the first people to reach out to her when her husband left her and check in on her and make sure she was okay, but that they did not become intimate and become one another's rebound until he left the relationship. But what Andrea is saying is that he left the relationship and moved out the same day and already had a spot ready. With Andrea alleging that this might have happened back in October to December era, Sarah is saying no, when I was having my child, actually I was still intimate with my husband, trying to keep my family together. Also, Andrea was pointing out that Sarah actually had John's business in her bio to help drive traffic to his business. So she's like, yeah, you were like invested in this man. Like, whichever way you slice it, you're doing the same thing to me that you condemned your husband's mistress for doing to you. So then once Sarah posted this is when Andrea came back with her response and was like, girl, don't play with me. At the end of the day, I know that you were talking to John well before me and him broke up, because he was using his work phone to talk to you, and he would leave his work phone at his job, so that way I had no idea what he was doing. And then she also pointed out that when she went for that work trip and came back, John's behavior and where they sit on the couch had also shifted. Before, if they were sitting on an L-shaped couch, he used to lay his feet here, her feet would be here, and both of their heads would be right here at the connection point. So if she wanted to turn and just look at his hands, she can see his phone if he's typing on it. All of a sudden, when she came back from his work trip, he put his head here and his feet here, so there's no way she could see what he's doing on his phone. And she's like, that's weird. Andrea also points out that Sarah had actually blocked her on Instagram before she ever found out that Sarah was involved with John. Andrea talks about how Sarah had posted a TikTok saying like, oh, even though I'm still legally married, I do have a crush on someone. And Andrea had commented on it and been like, oh, that's so funny that you have a crush on him, seeing how he's my ex of 4 years. And I guess Sarah saw that, deleted the comment, and then blocked her on TikTok, and then ultimately deleted the entire video. Andrea also said, you're right, Sarah, you guys aren't dating, you're ink. So she's like, I wouldn't call it dating either. Andrea has said that since they broke up in the past 3 months, John has reached out a few times trying to take her to lunch, trying to apologize. One time they did meet up for lunch and she actually ended up having to pay for the whole thing. And so she's just like, honestly, like, good riddance, I'm done with this chapter of my life. Andrea also wanted to address Sarah minimizing her trauma and being like, okay, fine, yeah, maybe I wasn't married, maybe I didn't have children, but at the end of the day, what you did was both hurtful and deceitful, and that's just the end of it. I guess once Andrea shared her side of the story and people got to see both responses, they started to side with Andrea more than Sarah. Sarah started receiving death threats and things like that, and she even has her comments right now filtered, because she was like, if you had the whole internet coming after you, you would go ahead and filter your comments as well. But at the end of the day, Andrea made a post and was like, please do not attack her, do not threaten her, do not bully her, do not dogpile. That's not the purpose of why I made this story time. It was just to show, even if it was just like 1 or 2 people that are her followers, that she's not exactly who she portrays herself to be. At the end of the day, Andrea was like, I'm a millennial, I'm barely on TikTok, I did not know this was gonna blow up, I just felt like I needed to tell my side of the story. But she doesn't actually want Sarah to be harmed or hurt. And I think the reason why Andrea brought this up is because a few people have commented about Sarah's looks and comparing it to Andrea, and I guess Andrea was getting like a little, you know, she was kind of feeling good because the comments were, I guess, siding with her over Sarah, and she was just like, look, I'm not even gonna acknowledge those comments anymore, I'm gonna delete them, do not talk about her looks. Andrea mentioned that another thing she thought was so weird was when they went to go get a membership at BJ's, she got it online, and when they went to go like in person, he was like making a whole fuss at the desk and being like, I want to be the account holder because she can cancel the membership at any time, I can't let that happen, da 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 da. And she was just like, okay, like, it's more work for the lady to take my name off and just leave your name, like both of our names are on there, it's fine. And he was just adamant about her not being the main account holder on this BJ's account. And then not to mention, they also had this other credit card that he would let her use. She was an authorized user on it, and she would buy groceries. Mind you, she bought the groceries, she laundry, she cleaned, she cooked, she did everything around the house, right? So he tells her like, oh, I'm not using that card anymore, give it to me so you don't accidentally use it. And she's just like, oh, okay. She doesn't think twice of it. But I think in hindsight, she realized he was slowly unraveling their life together, and anything that they had, you know, consciously decided to intertwine, he was like undoing slowly. So this is what makes her think that him breaking up with her was premeditated. He didn't just wake up one morning and decide, I don't want to be with you anymore. Not to mention, he went on both the trips, the birthday trip and the anniversary trip, because they were already planned, and then kind of broke up with her afterwards. So that's also what made her feel like this was pre-planned. Both of these women were hurt, and we always say happiness is never built on the tears of another woman. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. You guys tagged me in this a bunch, so I wanted to make sure I got it out to you guys. I am working on the engagement swindler. That's gonna be the next video, hopefully. Saturday, April 5th, we don't know what's happening, so here's everything you need to know to be able to follow my story times on or off this app. Hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.